Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. The All Parties Conference here in Pakistan has demanded the international community to take measures and ensure that the resolutions regarding the Palestinian issue are implemented. The All Parties Conference was addressed by President of Pakistan, Mr. Asif Ali Zardari, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, former Prime Minister Mr. Nawaz Sharif, also notable leaders of all the political parties here in Pakistan. Let me quote some important excerpts from these leaders. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has said Israel is mocking at the world powers, international institutions, Security Council resolutions and the International Court of Justice. He has said that the Israeli terrorism did not start on October the 7th last year, but it had been continuing in the last 7 decades. The Prime Minister further said Israel's state terrorism is now engulfing not only Gaza and Palestine but other countries in the region as well. The Prime Minister said hearts of the Pakistani people beat with their unarmed Palestinian brothers and sisters. Likewise, we have seen President Asif Ali Zardari reaffirming unwavering moral, diplomatic and political support to the people in Palestinian territories against Israel's illegal occupation and that relentless aggression that has been unleashed since 7th of October 2023. Today marks that very fateful day. We have seen till now, because of that relentless bombardment on the part of Israeli regime and its defense forces against the people in Gaza, over 41,000 innocent people have lost their lives and the injuries have been accrued to over 91,000 people. There are certain estimates that talk about the damage and the destruction that has been accrued over there in the Gaza Strip. 90% of the Gaza Strip has either been damaged or destroyed, the buildings, and it has created 42 million tons of rubble because of 75,000 tons of explosives that were used by the Israeli defense forces against the unarmed and innocent people in Gaza. To talk about what had been going on since last 1 year, we've been seeing there had been multiple efforts going on. There had been calls for an immediate ceasefire, but it's been 1 year despite lots of talks, lots of condemnations, and most recently we have seen world leaders congregating at the United Nations General Assembly talking specifically about it, but there hasn't been any clue of a ceasefire soon over there in Gaza. Rather, we have seen the audacity of the Israeli regime and its defense forces. They are opening up multiple fronts. We've also seen the relentless bombardment against innocent people in Lebanon also. Not only that, they have also been involved in the assassinations of the top leadership of the resistance groups against the illegal occupation. Let me quickly bring in our esteemed panel of guests to talk about the significance of today's APC, why the world community, the international community, especially the bigger organizations in the world, have been unable to implement those resolutions regarding the Palestinian issue, and why the major powers, despite lots of condemnations, have been unable to stop this Israeli genocide against innocent people in Gaza. For all that, we are honored to be joined in the studio by Dr. Amna Mahmood, foreign affairs expert. Dr. Amna, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to be joined by Mr. Air Commodore, retired Basit Raza Abbasi, senior analyst. Mr. Abbasi, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. On Skype at the same time, we are honored to be joined by Dr. Sabir Abu Maryam, Secretary General, Palestine Foundation, Pakistan. Dr. Abu Maryam, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Both of you participants present in the studio. If you allow me, let me begin the discussion with Dr. Abu Maryam. Dr. Abu Maryam, now this is first anniversary of that particular action against illegal occupation by the Palestinian resistance group, after which we saw, on the pretext of self-defense, Israeli regime and defense forces have unleashed a reign of terror that has led to the destruction of 90% of Gaza's infrastructure. 75,000 tons of explosives have been used against unarmed civilians over there in Gaza. Why the international community has been unable to stop this aggression, the genocidal aggression by Israel?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to inform and tell to the people who are listening and watching this news channel that the story of Palestine and the occupation of the Palestinian territory is not started from the October 7th. And the same stands today. I'm very happy when I saw the news that Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has taken it, that the story begins from 1948, as 76 years long history of the occupation by the Zionist illegitimate regime of Israel. The second thing, as you asked about why the international community, I am very upset. I am very upset in this modern ages that when we are going towards the modern political thoughts and some different theories, many things, but unfortunately, in these theories, in these political thoughts, there is a very gap. What is the gap? Gap is that the international organization, international community, they are failed to resolve the issues, like especially the Palestinian issue, and as well as same for us in Pakistan, that our Kashmir issue. The international community, unfortunately, sometimes we say that they have double standard, but now today, as we are witnessing that, the more than 50,000 people, innocent people, have been martyred in the Gaza, and hundreds and thousands of citizens of Gaza, they are under rebels. So there is international community. I think they don't have any standard. The United States, which is the most top problems for this issue in the Palestine, who is funding to Zionist regime since 2019 to till 2023, the American government provided $310 billion to Zionist regime, and now every year $38 billion they are given in the for the military aid to Zionist regime. For what? For killing the people of Palestine in West Bank in Gaza, to bring them in open prison in Gaza. This is the international stance and international community. So this region, Western Asian region, is under occupied by the Zionist illegitimate regime because the US government is need. The US government wants to capture and occupy all the resources in this region. And same in Pakistan, we are facing regarding the CPAC issue, regarding the other issue, we are facing this kind of issue, terrorism and multi things. So unfortunately, I do say that the international organization, especially the United Nations, has been failed to cover up, to resolve the issue of Palestine, as 1 year has been left since 7th of October and more than 50,000 people have been killed. But unfortunately, we are unable to stop because Israel is only we should talk with Israel through the power. It's not the matter of dialogue. If you will stand with the power, yes.
Of the United Nations having failed to stop Israel from its aggression. When we talk about that particular reign of terror that was unleashed by Israeli defense forces against the people of Gaza, we saw very strong worded condemnations coming forth by the United Nations Secretary General. After that, there was a reaction on the part of the Israeli leadership. They rather started asking for a resignation of the United Nations Secretary General. Most recently, we have also seen similar sort of reactions coming from the Israeli leadership. But we have seen that the United Nations, its chief, and the United Nations General Assembly itself, we saw that overwhelming resolution passed for a ceasefire over there. the UN as an international organization had been trying, but specifically talking about the United Nations Security Council, it is because of the US that you already mentioned wants to grab all the resources in the region. So when this is the intention of the US that leads to the veto of such type of resolutions, what sort of standing do you think the US gets in the Committee of Nations if its intentions are so?
Of course, you are right. Let me request you, my dear brother, the Israeli forces are not the defense forces, they are occupied forces. They had occupied, they are occupation forces. So second thing, yes, we as a Muslim nations, we as a other Muslim nation and also like-minded countries like South Africa, China, and Hafiz Naim today in the All Parties Conference, he take the stance, is very good, that the Pakistan should lead and we should invite all of our Muslim brother countries on the forum, and as well as we should invite all like-minded countries from Latin America, from global majority as Russia, China, and others. So I think we should go through to resolve this issue because United Nations has been failed, and also due to the US influence and the US terror-based policies against the different nations. So many nations are afraid from the US government policies, so they are not taking the stance, clear stance, and unfortunately the UN have no any force to enforce the resolution and any decision. So this is the only chance as Pakistan should lead. Pakistan should invite all Muslim countries, all Arab countries, all like-minded countries on one forum, and we should take the stance and we should try to resolve this issue. And first of all, our priority should be ceasefire and stop the genocide in Gaza.
Which should be the ceasefire. Can we see this particular ceasefire in the immediate future? I'll come back to you, Dr. Abu Maryam. Let me bring in other participants. Dr. Amna, it's been 1 year. The international community has failed to stop this genocidal aggression on the part of Israeli occupation forces against the innocent people in Gaza. Why so?
Jawad, it has been a pleasure always to be on your show, and it is equally painful to talk about Gaza because it has been 1 year, and as Abu Maryam mentioned and as everybody mentioned in today's conference, all parties conference, virtually international community has failed. And virtually international community and international organizations are hostage to the interest of very few countries who are among P5, and they don't want to have any ceasefire resolution there. And as you mentioned that the resolutions were passed, but as the United States declared that they are not binding. So it means that UN is helpless because passing resolution was not the mandate of UN Security Council. Its mandate was to reduce the probability of war, and then there would be war to check the disasters of war again. So these two stated goals were taken by UN Security Council at the time of its formation, and these two goals are nowhere. It means that rightly in this UNGA meeting it was questioned that how far UN is still relevant or not, and what is the logic for having P5 and veto in UN Security Council as well. So I think that this is a question mark, and international community is hostage in the hands of United States and its allies, and they are having their interests. As Abu Maryam mentioned, I would add to that US is not coming out of its hegemonic psyche, that they want to retain its hegemony over the resources of the world, people of the world, and region of the world. They don't want to acquire the role as they stated at the time of the New World Order, that there would be prosperity, there would be globalization and trade and technology transfers, and what we would do, that we are going to lead the world. They have failed to implement that. So that's why there is war, and Israel has stated that they would they are not going to end the war. And Abu Maryam has said, he said that international community should work for the ceasefire, but that would be the permanent ceasefire. The ceasefire which Israelis are offering, ceasefire for a brief period, and whenever they see that their interests are threatened, there would be again war. I think that permanent ceasefire is the first step, and then there would be permanent solution for the problem led by the international community, and according to the decisions of International Court of Justice. 2 decisions came and both are not implemented. So, I think that if international community is failed, then there would be no other choice to go for war, and war would be expanded, and we are seeing that war has been expanded to Lebanon, to Syria, and now it is being escalated to Iran as well.
Mr. Abbasi, now it has been 1 year, we have seen the destruction, the damage happening, the fatalities happening over there in the Gaza Strip. Not only this, as Dr. Amna has also rightly pointed out, that this particular aggression is expanding on the part of Israeli regime and its illegal occupation forces, first towards Gaza, now towards Lebanon, and also trying to drag Iran into this particular conflict. With the kind of responsibility, the role that should have ideally been played by the permanent 5 members of the United Nations Security Council, how do you analyze where that particular organization, which is mandated to implement the resolutions regarding this particular dispute, also, where did it fail?
I think we must leave all the jargon which was used while creating United Nations. As Dr. Amna just pointed out, that it was to bring peace in the world and sort of being an arbiter of disputes in the world. But what actually it has turned out in all these years, in reality, it is just handmaiden to the will and wishes of these 5 people who are generally in consensus. They have areas of their interest subdivided amongst themselves, and they don't sort of meddle into each other's area of interest. So, this is what we have been seeing, that and as far as the United States is concerned, they have the dominant role in creation of Israel. We all remember how the resolution was passed for creation of Israel, and the influence that Mr. Truman, the US President, exerted on smaller nations to vote in favor of this. So, all this is fresh in our minds. What is actually happening is that unfortunately, through academia, through press, through all the sources of information, so much of sort of sympathy had been created for Jews, that they are being persecuted, and although all their persecution was in Europe, but the minds were so sort of influenced that people in Western countries started think that these people have been sort of been on the wrong side of the history, and they must be given a fair place to live. And this mantra, this jargon has played so effectively. But let me tell you, although the situation is very bleak, and as Dr. Zakir Naik said, that there have been genocides in the past, this is the only genocide which is being telecast live every day. And this is the sort of proof of how deeply the conscience of world is at slumber, that they see it happening daily and there is no voice raised against it. Not a significant voice, although the young people in the United States rose against it. There have been protests in universities, and so many in London and so many cities, there have been huge processions. What I see the change after 7th October is that there is a change, at least in the younger generation, is now sort of realizing that Israel is not historically they have been wrong, they are actually the aggressors. They are like that ogre of Ulysses who was blinded, and then he was throwing rocks and everything in every direction and bringing havoc and destruction wherever it could. So, this is what Netanyahu is doing, and of course, he is supported financially, militarily, and diplomatically by none less than the United States and the P7 countries, G7 countries. And the change that I see, the slow change which is taking place, President Macron yesterday, he said that Western countries should stop supplying arms to Israel, and this was it has.
Do you think this call would be given a heed by the Western powers?
No. What I am saying, my statement is that although the situation is very bleak, and it's no significant changes in sort of visible at the moment, but there are undercurrents, and Macron's lone voice is an undercurrent in that direction, and those demonstrations which took place in American universities are a thing in that direction. So, and today this all parties conference, I do not think it will change much, but this is a move in the right direction. And as my friend just said, from that some Muslim countries should lead, should come forward and sort of collect the like-minded people. And I tell you, our hearts bleed, all the Muslim countries, their hearts bleed for the Palestinian brothers. But there are other countries who are non-Muslim, South Africa, Ireland, they have been very vocal and they have come out against it. So these are the waves which are sort of taking place, and they should be sort of strengthened and captured.
Right. When you just talked of Netanyahu, now we've seen at the United Nations General Assembly, the 79th session, the high-level week, so much has been talked about for the crisis in Gaza by the world leaders over there. But the kind of body language Netanyahu came at that particular podium, you already mentioned a very important fact that this particular genocide is happening before the cameras. I'll come to you with this very important point to take your detailed analysis. For now, I have to go on a very quick short break. After this particular short break, we'll be taking the analysis on this particular thing. For that, stay tuned. Welcome back to Viewers on News. I'm Jawad. Tehami. We are talking about the hostilities which are expanding in the region of the Middle East, and also Israeli occupation forces unleashing the reign of terror against the innocent people in Gaza. It's been 1 year. The international community has been unable to stop Israel from its aggression. In the studio, we are joined by Dr. Amna Mahmood, Air Commodore, retired Basit, Raza, Abbasi, and on Skype, Dr. Sabir Abu Maryam. Before going on the break, we were discussing a very important point with Mr. Abbasi. Mr. Abbasi, you already talked that this particular genocide, there had been multiple times the genocide occurred in the past, but this is the first time which is being recorded and being telecast live as it happens. Despite that, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, the kind of confidence that he went on the podium of the United Nations General Assembly session, don't you think that he would have thought that the way he was gaslighting the world leaders, the world community about the right of its self-defense, rather the kind of atrocities it has unleashed with impunity on the innocent and unarmed people, how the history is going to record that?
I think his stature and his confidence is because of the support that it has from the most powerful nations of the world. And very surprisingly, even day before yesterday, when there was sort of in the air that Iran may sort of take some retaliatory measures against Israel. So now the CENTCOM chief was in Israel to discuss Israel's response for Iran. How does Israel sort of reply the missile attack that Iran launched after Hezbollah chief's death? So this is the kind of sort of coordination between these two. Although we see Mr. Tony Blinken, he is shuttling in and out of Middle East and trying to sort of with very brisk pace walking and sort of trying to sort of sign a ceasefire. But
how do you look at this shuttle diplomacy on the part of Secretary of the United States of America? I mean, he coming back and forth to Middle East to have that ceasefire, and the kind of proposal that came from the Biden administration of that particular three-phased ceasefire. On the other hand, it's been supplying weapon and aid to Israel. What's that?
This is what's called grandstanding. This is for the cameras. This, you know, there's no substance in it. You know, if United States wants, they just have to stop supply of arms. They just have to stop financing this war, and it will come to an end. It will strangulate itself. But actually, they are actively supporting it, and at the same time, they are playing on the both sides of the wicket. They are actually gaining the sympathies, and especially now that this election is sort of a month away. So there is an effort by the administration to prove that they have a soft corner for the Muslim also, although they start from the fact that the attack was first launched by Hamas, and what Israel is doing is actually they are defending themselves, and they have a right to defend themselves. Now, if at all that right should have sort of been consummated in the 2-3 days or a week or a month or so, but it should not have gone on for a year, day in and day out, and it should not have spread into the other regions. Now, there seems to be a campaign to sort of extinguish any resistance against an Israel. We have seen what has been happening in Gaza and even in West Bank, which is actually towing their line to a large extent. There also the destruction is being happening every day.
There, yeah.
And then Lebanon is the new, because they are the areas, and I think there is a plan to sort of attack Yemen also, although American and British planes have already been bombarding their missile sites.
Right.
So that all is going on, and there is a sort of, to my mind, there is a sort of coordinated effort to sort of all the threats which sort of can ever sort of challenge the authority and hegemony of Israel in the region have to be eliminated totally. And
what could be done in that particular regard? I'll come back to you. Let me bring in Dr. Abu Maryam into the discussion also. Dr. Abu Maryam, is a ceasefire in immediate future possible? Do you see that coming?
Yes, of course, the ceasefire is a must and needed at this time, because the people of Gaza are suffering and the people of Lebanon also are suffering. And as the honorable guest stated, that the Yemen is also suffering. So ceasefire is most important. And I think if the international community or the international organization will be dependent on the US government-based ceasefire, I think it would be not happen. It would not be occurred. So we should think about any positive and any useful way which can be done regarding the ceasefire, because the Gaza is now suffering, and the people of Gaza are demanding the Zionist illegitimate forces must get out from the land, from the Gaza. The first point. The second, that the release of the prisoners. The prisoners, those are in the custody of the Zionist regime, and some hostages, those are in the custody of Hamas. So these 2 points are most important. If any government, any forum, any international group can be helpful, can be useful for this solution, so I think we should go through. But I am, personally, I am hopeless that if the US-based any ceasefire formula, it would not be implemented, because the Zionist regime has been lost everything. What happened with the hostages? Does Israel have released them? No. Does Israel crush the Hamas, crush the Hezbollah? No. Does Israel free the Red Sea area? No. These are the main issues. Until the aggression not to be stopped in the Gaza, these all issues will not be resolved.
Right, Dr. Abu Maryam, now the massive damage and destruction we have witnessed over there in Gaza, 75,000 tons of explosives used by Israeli regime and its illegal occupation forces there that have led to 42 million tons of debris. 90% damage and destruction has already been accrued. Even if the ceasefire happens, how this damage and the destruction would be reversed, not only in terms of the kind of resources that would be required, but also in terms of time for that.
Right, you are right. This is the most important issue. Once we will get the ceasefire, yes, then our duty will be start from the other side, that we must stand to the reconstruction for the Gaza, for the rehabilitation of the people, and to help them in the front of the in the front line. This will be the most important duty, and I think all the human lovers and the human rights believers must stand for this cause, for this help and for this rehabilitation and for this rebuilding of the Gaza. This will be the next step, and it will take time.
Dr. Amna, now is a ceasefire possible pretty soon? And what could be the possible contours of that? We've seen that shuttle diplomacy by Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, but there wasn't any sort of a positive outcome of all that shuttle diplomacy. Rather, the Americans were of the view that they've been able to keep that particular conflict into confined into that particular strip of Gaza. But even now, that particular claim doesn't stand true because it is expanding. It has expanded towards Lebanon also. So, do you see any ceasefire happening soon?
First, I would say that Mr. Blinken's all shuttle diplomacy, it was an effort to buy time, and that was fruitless, because Americans are not the part of solution, they are the part of problem. And it was just to appease the neighboring countries of Gaza that war would be over, have patience, ready for humanitarian aid, ready for rehabilitation, we are doing this, we are doing that. That was just for buying time, that Israel would eradicate even the last Gazan person there. I think that is my opinion. Secondly, yes, there is a solution. War can be stopped if the whole world community would go and convince United States and its allies. As you just mentioned, French president, and what was the response of Mr. Netanyahu to that? That he has gone mad, and he is a supporter of the human animals. So, I think that if everyone, and everyone has to speak up, you see today we are celebrating, we are actually we are standing in solidarity with the Palestinian and especially the Gazans in form of all parties conference. The whole world is standing. There are large demonstrations, conferences in all the top universities of the world that would convince their governments to speak in favor of Gaza. But till the time United States is not handing over its aid, nobody should convince Israel to stop war. If only United States stop aiding in the form of diplomatic, material and military support, war would be stopped. And that is actually the strategy of the whole world. Muslim world along with all third world, Latin American countries, they can convince United States because they are having lot of stakes with those countries, but they should use their leverage to stop Americans to go for the aid and help of Israel.
How much do you think this particular upcoming presidential elections in the US can weigh in on this particular assessment and then the decision of the administration at the helm in the United States to stop it? Is there any possibility that particular election could weigh in?
First, American administration is taking time to pass elections, and they wanted to win because they are supported by Mr. Biden, and now Ms. Kamala Harris, she is supported by US establishment, and they want to have a win for the same combination. But if Mr. Trump would be in office, I have read a few lines from him, because he is the originator of Abraham Accord, if you remember, and he wanted to secure every security for Israel, whether through peace or war. So, I think that there would be no change in the situation as far as United States support is concerned for Israel. And if Israel is convinced that it should be stopped, it is only way when it's having no support from the United States.
Right,
I think that there is no other solution.
Right, Mr. Abbasi, do you see this particular ceasefire or any proposed ceasefire by the US administration that could be accomplished in the immediate terms just before the US presidential election? Is there any possibility for that?
I have a feeling that there is a ray of hope there, only because a temporary respite, I would say. Because certainly the administration would like to do, anytime you sort of get out of a war situation, that sounds good for the voters, last election also Mr. Biden walked out of Afghanistan quickly, because that's a good sell for the voters. So, I think I feel, it is my feeling, I could be wrong there, that before the election there would be some effort by the present administration to do something to sort of ameliorate this situation. It may be a temporary thing, it may be a temporary pause, but I hope and I feel that there could be something coming up at that time.
Mr. Abbasi, one last quick question regarding as to the scale and the proportion of damage and destruction Gaza Strip has witnessed since 7th of October last year. Is there any possibility after, even if a ceasefire is reached, the quick reversal of that damage and destruction in terms of infrastructure, reconstruction there?
No. Actually, the destruction has been so massive that it will take many years to sort of offset this. And more important is the wounds, they are much deeper. They will never heal. The buildings may be reconstructed, the roads may be made again, the hospitals may become functional again. But the deep felt wounds, they would never heal. And that would one day bring the destruction of Israel.
Mr. Air Commodore retired Basit Raza, Abbasi senior analyst, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. In the studio, we're also joined by Dr. Amna Mahmood, foreign affairs expert. Dr. Amna, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. On Skype, we were joined by Dr. Sabir Abu Maryam, Secretary General, Palestine Foundation, Pakistan. Dr. Abu Maryam, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.